I'm quite shocked by the numbers, Barry. You might not be because you'd be aware of them, but and another one I saw that since November last year, the number of hardship withdrawals has exceeded first home withdrawals consistently. So is that a surprise to you to hear these numbers?
I think anyone who sees the number of people doing it hard in New Zealand wouldn't be too surprised. People are going through a really hard time at the moment, and it's reflected in the fact that when they can't pay their bills, that some of them will go and say, well, maybe I can get a hardship withdrawal from my KiwiSaver account in order to be able to pay the outstanding bills. And it's unfortunate because, these are retirement savings. They're there for the long term, for people's retirement. But, it's really understandable that a lot of people feel like they've got no choice at the moment.
Well, can we kind of walk through a few rules about being able to release money on grounds of financial hardship? Firstly, what is considered financial hardship? I mean, it's not obviously not being able to buy coffee every day for takeaway. It's got to be something quite substantial, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's typically if you've got a medical bill to pay, or if you just can't pay your bills, or you can't pay kind of interest payments coming up, then that's typically the kind of thing that would be considered a valid withdrawal. You can't, unfortunately, the way the rules are constructed, use it to pay off debt like credit card debt. So it is only kind of recurrent bills that you can pay off, and you have to make the case. You have to make the case to initially the people who provide your KiwiSaver, and then they send it through to their what's called supervisor. And these supervisors are the ones that come provide the oversight over KiwiSaver. There's three main ones in New Zealand, and they have the ultimate yay or nay on whether you can withdraw the money. Generally, if you make the case, they say yes.
So the final decision goes to, are you talking the likes of public trusts and trustees, executors, stuff like that? Yeah.
Exactly. So those are called the supervisors, and they kind of supervise the KiwiSaver scheme.
Is there a limit, Barry? I mean, is it enough just to cover a couple of months of minimum living costs, for example, or a case-by-case basis?
Typically, it's around 3 months of coverage of bills that you can't pay, and there are some quite prescribed limits. It's not open-ended. You can't have it for a year's worth. Again, it is only for some things and not others. So people will often get asked questions about, do you really need it, and can't you sacrifice it elsewhere? The thing that people should also be aware of is that it's really good to go to budgeting services in New Zealand. Most communities have got a budget service that kind of helps with basic financial advice about being able to plan your income and expenditure, being able to pay your bills, finding ways to save money, etc. And those budgeting services do a great job, and they're really good to see. So often, people, there's good evidence that people who have been to see the budgeting services sometimes then don't need to go and withdraw from their KiwiSaver fund. That they find good advice on other ways they can balance their income and spending.
I understand when people are struggling and they think, well, look, it's my money after all, so I'm going to take it to get by, right? But I suppose we have to remember too, it will affect how much is available at retirement, as you mentioned. Now, I've seen figures that say an $8,000 hardship withdrawal would cost someone about $50,000 off their final retirement balance over a 30-year investing time horizon. I mean, that's a lot of money that you won't get.
Yeah. And these are all based on the magic of what's called compound interest. So if you get interest year on year, it builds up over time, and that's how something like 8,000 goes to 50,000. It's all subject to whether, in fact, your money turns out that way. But those are taken on kind of average assumptions. So yes, it's a good idea to leave your money in KiwiSaver if you can. And if there are other ways to do it without tapping into your KiwiSaver, that's obviously a kind of first resort. So people shouldn't jump first to taking their money out, pleading hardship through KiwiSaver Fund. But, for a lot of people, they really do have no choice.
Yes, of course.
And from my perspective, from Mindful Money's perspective, those rules should probably be a little bit less tight than they are. So, people get really trapped in high debt, for example, and sometimes a bit of breathing space can make all the difference.
So you're saying at the moment it's still it's quite hard to tap into it.
It's still pretty restrictive, and we'd like the rules to take care of a few more situations that would really help people with the breathing space. But again, it is good if people get some good advice from this. Don't do it to any third party who might try and do a scam and take your money. But there are these people who are licensed financial advisors, and they can help. They generally do charge a fee. Or even better, these budgeting services across the country that provide really good advice on kind of basic household budgeting and how you can balance the books.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Barry. You preempted my next question, actually, because I talked scams yesterday, and I see that there are scammers that can try and get their grubby mitts on your super by saying that they'll go, they say, look, I can help you in your hardship withdrawal. Would you like me to deal with it? And is that something they try and do to get the money out of you?
They're pretty inventive, aren't they, eh? Yeah. So people really have to be careful, especially around money. It's just being absolutely sure that somebody is who they say they are. Check the email address, check the organisation they work for, make sure you ring them back and so on. But generally, if it's a case of a hardship withdrawal from your KiwiSaver, you shouldn't have to go through a third party. Just get hold of whoever's your KiwiSaver provider and deal with them directly.
Someone has texted, and I think I know the answer to this, Barry, but I'll ask the expert. Someone says, hi, can I put my KiwiSaver into my house loan, basically into the mortgage? No?
You can when you buy your first house. That's the first home KiwiSaver withdrawal. So you can do that, but you can't use it to pay off your existing mortgage, and that's one of the things where the rules are pretty tough at the moment. So you can to kind of fund an operation or some kind of emergency or some family sickness or something like that, but you can't in order to pay down your mortgage.
Right. And what would be your advice, Barry, to anyone that it may not have even started a super yet, or, I mean, I've got to be honest, I started mine quite late, probably only about 10 years ago, and I'm only about 10 years off getting a super, but I gather there's start early, start as soon as you can?
Yeah, start early is a good idea. Secondly,